The National Park Service welcomes you to the Charlestown Navy Yard, one of the many historic sites that make up Boston National Historical Park. For 174 years, the Charlestown Navy Yard served the nation's fleet. Even today, more than 2 decades after its official closure, the yard still serves its original function through its work in preserving USS Constitution and the World War II destroyer USS CASSIN Young. We hope this brief presentation gives you a better understanding of the yard's history and what the Navy Yard offers you today. Following the War for American Independence, the country's merchant ships were no longer able to rely on the might of the British Royal Navy for protection. The young republic first built several warships, including USS Constitution, and then established Navy yards along the eastern seaboard where a small fleet could be built, supplied, and repaired. In 1800, the federal government established the Charlestown Navy Yard by purchasing 25 acres of pasture land on Moulton's Point, across the harbor from Boston's North End. This location had already achieved significance on the morning of June 17, 1775, when British troops from Boston landed here to fight colonials at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Originally intended to be a supply depot, the yard was transformed during the War of 1812 under the direction of Commandant William Bainbridge. This former captain of USS Constitution introduced covered ship houses to Charlestown to build the Navy's first ship-of-the-line, USS Independence. Ship houses not only protected the wooden ships from rot, they also improved production by sheltering workers during bad weather. Although the Navy Yard was run by naval officers, civilians wielded the caulking mallets and sewed the acres of sail. Before the Civil War, the workforce never exceeded several hundred workers. Building and maintaining a fleet of warships demanded a wide variety of highly skilled labor, including sawyers, joiners, spar makers, gun carriage makers, sail makers, blacksmiths, caulkers, riggers, rope makers, and coppersmiths. Called by the shipyard bell, these artisans and laborers who gathered at the muster house every morning and evening worked from sunrise to sunset. In the 1830s, 2 significant building projects, construction of the massive granite dry dock and completion of the rope walk complex, established Charlestown as one of the preeminent Navy yards in the country. Before dry docks, workers careened large vessels to clean and repair the hulls below the waterline, an expensive, time-consuming, and potentially dangerous task which could seriously damage the strength of the ship. Since it was completed in 1833, the dry dock has witnessed the construction and repair of hundreds of warships ranging from wood and canvas to steel and diesel. Several factors led the U.S. Navy to construct its only facility to manufacture rope at the Charlestown Navy Yard in the 1830s: the availability of highly skilled labor, access to raw materials, and technological expertise. The Navy was particularly eager to take advantage of newly developed labor-saving machines, such as those already in use in New England's textile mill towns. The rope walk complex, designed by architect Alexander Paris, best known for Boston's Quincy Market, included the quarter-mile-long rope laying area, spinning and preparing machine rooms, the hemp house, and tar house. Several famous vessels were launched from Charlestown shipways before the Civil War. Among them was the frigate USS Merrimack, launched in 1855. She could cruise under sail and fight under steam. Burned to the waterline in 1861 at the start of the Civil War to avoid capture by the South, the undamaged hull was nevertheless converted by the Confederacy into the ironclad CSS Virginia. Her battle with the Union ironclad Monitor would revolutionize naval warfare throughout the world. The post-Civil War era was characterized by the Navy's reluctance to scrap an obsolete wooden fleet in favor of an iron and steel one already being built by European powers. America's transition to steel ships finally began in the 1880s, under prodding from naval theorists such as Alfred Thayer Mahan. This powerful new Navy of steel proved itself capable of matching the sea powers of Europe in the years following the Spanish-American War in 1898. In the early 20th century, the Charlestown Navy Yard again assumed an important role in the maintenance of the fleet. A major building program added modern shop facilities of brick and steel construction alongside those of granite from the 1830s. New ship technologies and materials dramatically altered the workforce. Electric-powered equipment replaced the manpower tools of an earlier era, and skills such as riveting, machining, chain production, and metal casting replaced those of an obsolete wooden and sail navy. Charlestown achieved another technological innovation in 1926 when yard workers invented die-lock chain. Die-lock chain, stronger than normal forged chain, was specially designed to hold the anchors for the Navy's largest ships, battleships, and aircraft carriers. During the 1930s, President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal programs brought orders to Charlestown for destroyer construction. More orders followed as the menace of fascism in Europe and military expansionism in Asia threatened world peace. When the United States entered World War II, production centered on two types of vessels designed to meet specific needs. The destroyer escort countered the German submarine menace in the Atlantic, while the tank landing ship, or LST, enabled the Allies to invade enemy-held shores around the globe. During World War II, high production demands and a need for labor brought many new workers into the Charlestown Navy Yard. Employment peaked at over 50,000 in 1943. The significant rise in African American and women workers changed the character of the workforce in the Navy Yard. By war's end, women made up almost 20% of the workforce. They became riveters, welders, and machinists, and contributed significantly to the largest ship construction program in the Yard's history. It can be said that the Navy Yard reached its finest hour during World War II. After the war, the Navy found itself with a large surplus of ships, many of which Navy Yard workers converted to carry advanced systems such as sonar and guided missiles. The Charlestown Navy Yard became a leader in this effort, producing the Navy's first guided missile destroyer, USS Guyot, in 1955. During this period, it also modernized USS CASSIN, now berthed at the Navy Yard as a museum ship. The federal government's decision to close the Charlestown Navy Yard in 1974 was motivated by both a need to economize and pressures on Congress to rely on the private sector for defense production needs. The threat of closure had seemed imminent many times in the shipyard's history, but this time, the decision was firm and final. The shipyard today, however, is far from an abandoned ghost town. Old buildings have been imaginatively changed to fulfill new functions. The National Park Service plays an important role in the Navy Yard's preservation. In 1974, approximately 30 acres of the shipyard were set aside as part of Boston National Historical Park. Here, some of the yard's oldest structures are preserved to interpret the history of the yard. Dry Dock Number 1 is used by the National Park Service to restore and maintain USS CASSIN and is available to the Navy for the maintenance and repair of USS Constitution. The National Park Service currently offers a variety of interpretive programs for the visitor, including shipyard tours and the Serving the Fleet exhibit on Navy Yard history. There are tours of the destroyer CASSIN, explanations of how the men and women of the yard actually built the ships, and there are special reenactments so that the public may better understand what happened here. These interpretive programs are enhanced by visiting ships, both modern and historic, from countries around the world. What is happening to the remaining 100 acres of the shipyard? The City of Boston has implemented an urban development plan as part of its ongoing efforts to revitalize the city's waterfront. This transformation of the Navy Yard's historic mills and factories into housing, research laboratories, offices, shops, and museums preserves our industrial heritage. What was once a closed military establishment is now a recreational area for the community and a vibrant living space. The pride of workmanship, shared by the thousands of workers who pass through the Yard's gate, was reflected by the Yard's motto, "Serving the Fleet." Now, the Charlestown Navy Yard serves the public in ways unforeseen by its former workers. Welcome to the Charlestown Navy Yard.